Hello, and welcome to your lecture on Capitalism and Communism. Grab your student notes and use them to follow along and fill in any blanks that you missed in class. On a bright, sunny day in the middle of March, Maybelle goes to work. She works hard all day, and at the end of the day, she receives her paycheck. Eager to spend it, she trots off to the bookstore where she picks up a book by her very favorite author, Emily Dickinson. Afterwards, she heads off to the hospital, where a very nice and competent doctor works to reattach her hand. Maybelle has participated in her country's economy. An economy is a system for distributing resources to meet people's needs and wants. There are different kinds of economies, and even among countries with basically the same kind of economy, there will be differences. But no matter the type of economy or how it is implemented, a country's economy will determine three main things. First, an economy will determine how people make and exchange goods and services. Goods are physical things like Maybelle's book or like a tin. Services are things that people do for each other, like reattaching Maybelle's hand or like getting your hair cut. So how people make and exchange goods will depend on the type of economy their country has. The second thing that a country's economy determines is who owns the means of production. Means of production is a very important term. It's used to describe anything that is used to make goods, to manufacture those physical items. The most common example of a means of production is the factory. Factories are very useful for manufacturing clothing and cars and stuffed raccoons. However, there are other forms of means of production as well. Think of a lumber mill. Think of all the appliances and tools used in a bakery to produce all those delicious breads and cakes. Who owns those means of production will be determined by the country's economy. The third thing that a country's economy determines is what goods to make and how many of them to make. If you think about it, there are so many goods in this world. There are scissors and tins and spaghetti. What do we choose to make and how much of it do we make? Do we make just one stuffed raccoon? Or perhaps should we make a whole room full? Or a whole city full? Shall we become known as the city of the stuffed raccoon? Whatever we decide, it will be decided by the type of economy we have. Capitalism is one type of economic system. In capitalism, private individuals own the means of production. In other words, the owners of the factories and the lumber mills and the bakeries are normal people, like you or I. Capitalism is based on competition, on the ability of businesses to compete with each other for the customer's money, and on the freedom of the consumer to choose what and where to buy. The freedom of the customer to decide if he's going to buy a product from company A, company B, company C, or no company at all. This focus on the individual consumer means that capitalism relies on consumerism, on people's desire to buy things and more things and more things. Businesses survive or fail depending on how well they compete with each other for the customer's money, and the type and price of goods is determined by the customer. In other words, if everybody wants to buy stuffed cats are what the businesses will produce. If everybody changes their mind and decides that stuffed raccoons are the wave of the future, the businesses will make stuffed raccoons. If customers say, I will not, under any circumstances, pay more than $2 for a computer mouse, the businesses are going to have to find a way to make a computer mouse for under $2. But if the business can convince the customer that their mouse is worth more than $2, this mouse, look at how cute that is. Oh my goodness, look at that purple and that white. You know that you would be willing to pay $3 for a stylish mouse like this. Well, if the business can convince the customer that it's worth it, they can raise the price to $3. So the type and price of goods depends on what the customer wants to buy and is willing to pay. Capitalism overall creates more wealth and more product variety than other economic systems. If you think about it, consumers don't all want stuffed cats. Some of them want stuffed cats, but some want stuffed raccoons. Some of them might want stuffed iguanas. I want a stuffed iguana. If you go just to Walmart and look at their selection of stuffed animals, you will see a huge variety, and that is just one store. So capitalism creates overall more wealth and more product variety than other economic systems. But it also creates something else a bit less fun, namely large inequality between the rich and the poor. There'll be a big wealth gap between the people at the very top and the people at the very bottom. If you think about the Industrial Revolution, where you have people pulling enormously long days at factories in unsafe conditions for basically no money at the bottom, and people at the top filling their sandboxes with diamonds and rubies and saying, "Come to my party, play in my diamond and ruby sandbox," you have a great example of the kind of inequality that capitalism can create, and this inequality forms the basis for many modern criticisms of capitalism. Because everything in capitalism is focused around the individual owner, the individual consumer, capitalist societies tend to value the individual, and they prioritize individual rights and freedoms like freedom of speech. In a capitalist society, it doesn't really matter if what you say makes somebody glad or sad or mad. You have the right to say it. Let's take a look at communism, which is a very different kind of economic system. In communism, the people collectively own the means of production. So you don't have one owner for this clothing factory and another owner for this shoe factory and their employees working for them. Instead, all the people at the top, the workers, everyone, they all own those factories together. Communism was the brainchild of Karl Marx, a German philosopher who believed that communism would be the solution to the inequality and harsh working conditions in the Industrial Revolution. Remember those diamond sandboxes and those long hours in unsafe conditions? Karl Marx was there to see it, and he thought that it was wrong and we needed a new economic system to fix it. Karl Marx in 1848 argued that all of history was a struggle between different classes, that all throughout history the rich have been trying to stomp on the poor and the poor trying to get their own back. In terms of capitalist society, he argued that the struggle was between the owners of the means of production, or the bourgeoisie, and the workers, or the proletariat. And you can see why he might think that. Take a look at your factory. When the person who runs the factory runs it, what's he doing it for? Money. He wants to earn a lot of money and become rich. What are the people working there for? They're working for money. They're working because they want to earn more and more money. Okay, if the normal employees earn more money, the owner earns less money. If the owner takes more of the money, the employees earn less money. You can see how this might cause a struggle between the owners and the workers, between the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. So Karl Marx argued that the best society would be one in which there was no private property, so no individual owned something, but instead everyone worked for the good of all. The reason why you would work would be not just to line your own pockets, but instead to help your families, to help your communities, to help your country as a whole. You were working for the good of all. And he has a very famous quote, "From each according to his ability, to each according to his needs." In other words, you work your hardest according to your ability. If you're a doctor, you go out there and be the best doctor you can. If you're a teacher, you go out there and be the best teacher you can. And in turn, when somebody needs something, food or shelter or medical care, they will receive it. However, Karl Marx knew that it was not going to be possible to go directly from a capitalist society where everyone was working for their own self-interest and for money to a communist society where everyone was going to be working for the good of all. And so he designed a transitional state called socialism. Socialism is a transitional state between capitalism and communism in which it's the government that owns all the means of production and distributes goods according to people's needs. Communist and socialist societies value community, and the stability of the community is more important than individual rights or freedoms. If something you say is going to hurt the community, don't say it. It's not important for you to choose where you live, or your house, or what you eat. What is important is that you have a place to live, that you have a house, and that you have food. Next week, we'll take a look at the spread of communism across the globe, with the rising tensions between communist and non-communist countries, and the beginning of a war that was very cold indeed. See you next week.